Welcome to Limitless Mindset, where your journey to greatness begins. I'm Jonathan Cahn, your guide to unlocking potential, breaking barriers, and transforming your life with unstoppable motivation. Every video is a spark to ignite your purpose, power, and passion. Subscribe now and step into the mindset that knows no limits. There is a moment, a sacred, silent moment when your voice is no longer heard, not because you've lost it, but because you've chosen silence. Not weakness, not fear, but power. The world tells you to speak up, fight back, explain yourself, defend your worth. But when you go silent, truly silent, you shake the foundations of manipulation. You break chains not by screaming, but by simply walking away. And when you do that, when you step back from the chaos, the cycle begins. When you stop reacting, you sever the lifeline of the narcissist. Your silence speaks louder than words. It disrupts the illusion. It confronts them with what they hate the most, being powerless. The narcissist thrives on attention, on reaction. They provoke so they can feel dominant. They trigger so they can feel validated. And suddenly, you give them nothing. They look for your fear, but see your peace. They expect your anger, but find your stillness. And it terrifies them, because they realize the control is gone. When you go silent in the presence of a narcissist, it doesn't go unnoticed. In fact, it strikes harder than any words you could say. Narcissists feed off reaction, response, attention, and emotional engagement. They require constant input to fuel their sense of control and self-importance. Your silence isn't simply the absence of sound, it's the loudest disruption to their system. It is a complete detachment from their game, their manipulation, their attempt to remain at the center of your thoughts and emotions. When you stop responding, you rob them of their power. They are no longer in control of the narrative. They can no longer provoke you into defending yourself, explaining your feelings, or validating their behavior through your emotional breakdown. This loss of control triggers something deep within the narcissist. It forces them to look inward, which is the very thing they fear the most. Their identity is often constructed from outside validation. They need mirrors, people who reflect back their greatness, their charm, their dominance. When you walk away or refuse to react, the mirror breaks. They are left staring at a version of themselves they do not want to confront, empty, insecure, disconnected. Your silence pushes them into a state of confusion. It doesn't compute with their tactics. They expect a fight, not a door closing without a word. They expect tears, not peace. They expect you to chase, not disappear. To a narcissist, silence means they're no longer the focus of your world, and that is a wound they cannot treat. The absence of your voice exposes the truth. They were never in control. They were simply borrowing your attention to build their illusion of power. Silence becomes the one thing they cannot manipulate, twist, or argue with. Words they can counter. Tears they can mock. But silence they cannot hold it, define it, or shape it. It stands as a silent testimony against their behavior. Without your response, they begin to spiral. They may try to bait you, provoke you, or re-enter your life with guilt and charm. But all of it stems from a frantic need to restore what they believe they've lost. They want their mirror back. They want their emotional supply restored. And when they realize the silence isn't a tactic, but a decision, a permanent shift in how you relate to them, it starts to dismantle the illusion they built around themselves. Their sense of superiority begins to crack. Their sense of control slips through their fingers. They are left facing the haunting reality that their power was never real. It existed only in your engagement, your reaction, your willingness to participate in their game. Silence becomes the loudest truth you've ever spoken. It tells them they no longer control your mind, your heart, your emotions, or your future. It breaks the chains of dependency. It burns the bridge of manipulation. It draws a line that they cannot cross unless you allow it. And with every moment of continued silence, the narcissist feels less relevant, less powerful, less necessary in your life. That unraveling begins internally. They may not show it on the surface. They may appear indifferent, even victorious. But beneath that facade is a storm of insecurity. They question their grip. They replay past interactions. They search for ways to pull you back in, to reassert their narrative. But your silence is a declaration of clarity. It means you've seen the truth. You've stepped out of the fog. You're no longer emotionally intoxicated by their manipulation. And that is something they cannot undo. Their tactics no longer work. Their charm no longer dazzles. Their presence no longer commands your attention. That realization forces them into a reckoning they aren't prepared for. The illusion collapses, and they're left with what remains, themselves, without an audience, without a victim, without a stage. Your silence didn't just end the conversation. It shattered their carefully built illusion and revealed what they always tried to hide. The narcissist cycle after losing control does not stop at silence. In fact, silence is only the trigger that sets their internal machine in motion. The moment they realize their manipulation has failed, a new phase begins. That phase is built around emotional chaos. First comes the rage, the unfiltered frustration that you dared to remove yourself from their grip. This rage may not always appear loud or violent. Sometimes it manifests in subtle, passive-aggressive tactics or in calculated attempts to get a reaction. But make no mistake, it is rage. The narcissist is furious that the pattern has broken, that their familiar dynamic has been interrupted. You were expected to argue, defend, beg, explain. You were supposed to give them the energy they feed on. But instead, you went quiet. And now, in the silence, they scramble to regain the emotional upper hand. The manipulation begins again, only this time it's more desperate. They may start with charm, pretending nothing ever happened, reaching out with fake warmth or sudden acts of concern. They might use guilt, reminding you of everything they claim to have done for you. They may twist the narrative, portraying themselves as the one who was hurt or abandoned. All of this is designed to provoke an emotional reaction, because that reaction reestablishes their position of power. They don't care if you cry or yell or try to reason. They just want to pull you back into the cycle. And if you resist that first attempt, they may escalate. That's when the insults, accusations, and emotional attacks start. They will look for your weak spots, your fears, your vulnerabilities. They will say things crafted specifically to shatter your peace and make you question your decision to walk away. When that fails, the smear campaign often follows. The narcissist cannot stand to be exposed or rejected, so they shift blame before you even speak. They begin telling mutual acquaintances distorted versions of the story, casting you as unstable, cruel, or emotionally irrational. They plant seeds of doubt in others because they want to isolate you, to discredit your experience before you can find your voice. They fear your truth more than anything, so they try to drown it in lies. These lies serve two purposes: to protect their image and to provoke you into defending yourself. The more you defend, the more energy they extract, and if they can pull you into a public reaction, they'll claim it as proof that you're the problem. Behind all of these tactics lies the core motivation: control. The narcissist operates through cycles of idealization, devaluation, and discard. But silence interrupts all three stages. It removes the fuel, it blocks the pattern, and in response they become unstable. The calm, calculated persona they once maintained starts to slip. Their mask cracks. Their behaviors become increasingly erratic. In some cases, they may even try to re-idealize you, making it seem like they've changed, that they've seen the error of their ways, that they are finally ready to take responsibility. This sudden shift is rarely genuine. It's a last resort, a desperate attempt to regain your attention before the silence becomes permanent. During this time, the narcissist may swing between playing the victim and acting as the aggressor. One day, they might be remorseful. The next, they may be cruel. This emotional whiplash is not accidental. It's meant to confuse you, to destabilize your sense of reality, to make you question yourself. If they can keep you emotionally off balance, they can pull you back in. This cycle is not just toxic, it's intentional. It's a system designed to keep you entangled in emotional debt, always trying to make sense of the chaos they create. But without your participation, the system begins to collapse. The narcissist is not capable of sustaining their own emotional ecosystem. They require others to supply them with identity, validation, and attention. Your silence deprives them of all three. That deprivation is what triggers the entire cycle. It's not love they're mourning, it's power, not connection, but control. When they see you no longer respond, no longer explain, no longer justify, they panic. They try every tool in their toolbox to reel you back in. If one fails, they try another, but every failed attempt chips away at their illusion of invincibility. Every unanswered message, every ignored insult, every peaceful boundary you maintain weakens their grip further. The cycle continues only as long as you engage. Once you stay silent, the cycle enters its most unstable phase. The narcissist is left spinning, without fuel, without focus, without the control they once held tightly in their hands. Your silence is not revenge. It may feel like a punishment to the narcissist, but it was never about them. It was about you stepping into healing, into strength, into clarity. When you stop speaking, stop explaining, stop reacting, you are no longer playing the part they wrote for you. Narcissists thrive in emotional chaos. They orchestrate conflict and confusion because it gives them control. But when you choose silence, you remove yourself from their stage. You stop being a character in their play. You begin to rewrite your own script, one that isn't defined by pain, guilt, or fear. This silence is not passive. It is not a surrender, it is active, it is intentional. It is a boundary in its purest form. It says, I will no longer engage with what harms me. It's not about withholding communication out of spite. It's about protecting your peace with sacred discipline. That silence is laced with wisdom. It is the decision to step away from manipulation, gaslighting, and emotional abuse. It is the only language the narcissist cannot twist or weaponize. Silence cannot be misquoted. It cannot be edited. It cannot be flipped to serve their version of the story. It simply is, and it holds a weight heavier than any confrontation ever could. In that silence, something shifts, not only in the narcissist, but in you. Your mind begins to clear. The fog of confusion starts to lift. You no longer spend your days rehearsing explanations, bracing for attacks, or defending your worth. You begin to heal. You begin to see the patterns for what they were. You realize how much energy was spent trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You understand that no amount of love or logic can change someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. And with every moment of silence, your strength grows. Not loud strength, not aggressive strength, but quiet, unshakable, internal strength. The narcissist, unable to control your silence, becomes restless. They test boundaries. They try to provoke. They reach out with love bombs or accusations, switching masks from charming to cruel in an attempt to re-engage you. But you have seen behind the mask. You have recognized the cycle, and you know that responding means returning to a place you fought hard to escape. So you remain silent, not to win, not to punish, but to stay free. And in that freedom, your soul begins to restore itself. This kind of silence is sacred. It protects your energy. It honors your intuition. It tells your inner child, your wounded self, that the war is over. That they are safe now, that they no longer have to beg for peace from people who profit from chaos. Silence isn't about proving anything. It's about choosing yourself. It's about refusing to be baited into emotional warfare. It's about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Not because you don't have something to say, but because what you've discovered in your quiet is more valuable than any argument. In silence, you break the trauma bond. The cycle that once felt so familiar begins to feel foreign. You realize that love should never feel like walking on eggshells. That respect isn't something you should have to earn through suffering. That real connection doesn't require you to shrink yourself to make others feel big. Your silence creates space for truth to rise. It exposes the manipulation for what it is. It reveals the narcissist's fear, not yours. It shows the imbalance of a relationship that was never mutual. And it reminds you of something you had forgotten in all the noise: your worth. You do not owe access to someone who consistently uses it to harm you. You do not owe explanations to someone who twists your words. You do not owe your presence to someone who only values it when it's gone. Your silence is not revenge. It is recovery. It is realignment with who you are, beyond what they tried to reduce you to. It is the echo of your healing, the sound of boundaries being honored, and the declaration that peace is no longer negotiable. You are not being cold or cruel. You are being clear. You are not running away. You are rising. You are not abandoning anyone. You are returning to yourself, and in doing so, you reclaim what the narcissist never wanted you to see: your own light, your own power, your own voice, even in the silence. Walking away from a narcissist is often misunderstood. It's seen as weakness, as avoidance, as giving up. But in truth, it is one of the most courageous and powerful acts a person can make. Choosing to walk away, to remove yourself from the cycle of manipulation and control, takes strength far greater than staying ever could. There is a strength that comes from knowing you deserve better. There is clarity that forms when you realize peace is worth more than proximity. You are not walking away to run from conflict. You are walking away because you've realized that no resolution can come from staying trapped in someone else's delusion. The moment you walk away is the moment you reclaim your narrative. For so long, you were part of their story, acting on their script, reacting to their chaos. But the decision to leave ends that chapter. You are no longer under the weight of their emotional weather. You are not swinging between praise and punishment. You are no longer explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. You are no longer dancing for approval that was always out of reach. The moment you choose yourself over the cycle, you become free, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Freedom doesn't come when the narcissist changes. Freedom begins the moment you stop waiting for them to. This kind of decision doesn't come easily. It often arrives after months or years of confusion, self-doubt, and emotional exhaustion. The narcissist is an expert at making you question reality, at blurring the lines between love and control, concern and criticism, care and coercion. They twist the truth so effectively that you begin to believe you're the problem. You over-explain, you apologize too much, you try harder, you sacrifice your boundaries for the sake of peace that never comes. But over time, your soul begins to whisper what your mind has silenced. This is not love. This is not safety. This is not how relationships should feel. And then, slowly or suddenly, comes the awakening, the realization that you've been trying to earn the respect that should have been given freely. The clarity that love should not cost your mental health. The awareness that healing cannot happen in the same environment where the wounds were made. Walking away isn't a reaction, it's a revelation. It is the deep inner knowing that staying will cost more than leaving ever will. It is not about pride or punishment, it's about preservation. You are protecting the parts of you that are still whole, still alive, still capable of trusting again, laughing again, living fully again. When you walk away, the narcissist may act confused, insulted, or outraged. They may pretend not to care or lash out in ways that are designed to pull you back in. They may use others to reach you, twist the story to make you look like the villain, or wait in silence for you to break. But you've already broken many times, just not in the way they think. You've broken under the weight of emotional neglect, under the sharpness of criticism disguised as honesty, under the silence that followed every plea for understanding. And yet you've survived. You've made it out of the fog. You've stopped asking why and started asking how to heal, how to rebuild, how to reclaim the pieces of yourself that were lost along the way. There is something sacred about the space that opens up when you finally walk away. It's not just an escape, it's an entry into something new. Into stillness, into truth, into a life not built around tiptoeing and people pleasing. You begin to reconnect with your instincts. You start to hear your own voice again. You trust your judgment without second guessing. You remember what joy felt like before it was used against you. And even though the healing journey is not easy, it is real, it is honest, it is yours, and you are no longer being drained by someone who only saw you as an extension of themselves. This is what real freedom feels like, not loud or boastful, but steady and clear. You no longer seek closure from the person who caused the damage. You no longer need validation from someone who invalidated every part of your reality. You learn that walking away was not an end. It was the beginning of everything you were meant to become. You recognize that the silence following your exit is not emptiness. It is space where your healing can breathe. You were never meant to shrink yourself for love. You were never created to live in fear or confusion. You were meant to rise, to love yourself enough to leave what breaks you, and to never look back. So if you've gone silent, if you've walked away, if you've chosen peace over performance, know this: you didn't lose. You won. You didn't abandon them. You finally returned to yourself. And in the quiet that followed, you found something they could never give you: clarity, healing, and the sound of your own voice rising from the ashes. You don't owe anyone your pain just to prove your love. You don't have to break to keep someone whole. You don't have to explain the silence that saved your soul. Let them wonder, let them talk, let them twist the story. Because while they spin their narrative, you're building your freedom. You are not what they did to you. You are what you chose to become after, and that is the real victory. Walk forward not with bitterness but with brilliance. Not with revenge but with resilience. Not in pieces but in peace, because silence didn't break you. It built you, and now your quiet speaks louder than their chaos ever could. You are free, and you are finally home.